Hello, welcome back, Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classics / Non-Classics. This is episode number 240 and Doubleshot number 173. First up is Batman, the Ring, the Arrow, and the Bat. This book collects issues Legends of DC Universe issues 7 through 9, and Batman Legends of the Dark Knight issues 127 through 131. Now, despite the cover having Green Arrow, Green Lantern, and Batman on the cover, here's the thing. This type of team up does not happen in the book at all. Oh, and also, despite the fact that, yeah, it kind of looks like that Green Arrow has his goatee in the cover, he actually is clean shaven. He does have a beard once in the story, but he doesn't have his goatee. No, mainly because this takes place before he gets his famous goatee, and when he's in costume, he looks like the way he did back in his debut appearance. Here we go. Clean shaven. Basically, he's wearing his original costume. Now, Green Arrow has gone through several different costumes over the years. That was his original costume. Technically, you can kind of count this story as the first time Hal Jordan ever met Oliver Queen. Now, it's kind of hinted at the fact that because the fact that he kind of knew him, it kind of hinted at that Hal Jordan knows that Oliver Queen is the Green Arrow. Not exactly much in the case of vice versa, of Oliver Queen knowing that Hal Jordan is the Green Lantern. Now, Green Arrow is one of two characters that connect the two major stories that happen here. The other, of course, is the main villain, General Zao. Let's see here. Which is this guy right here. That is General Zao. He's the main villain of this entire story, though he gets killed off halfway through the second one. The one thing you can say that's really neat about both stories, about major stories, I mean, the Green Arrow, the first one is just a team up between Green Arrow and Green Lantern. That one's called Peacemakers. And the Legends of the Dark Knight issues are called, the story for them, if I can get to them. Let's see, where are you? I think I just got past them, didn't I? Okay, the Green Arrow, when he teams up with Batman, that's called the Arrow and the Bat. Now, the artwork in here, from what I can tell, is very early Greg Land. Yeah. Despite the fact this guy is noteworthy for being a tracer, yeah, this is early Greg Land artwork. Despite the fact the guy has a reputation of being known as the Tracer, there's hardly any tracing expressions throughout the whole story. Now, later on in the story, oh, I almost forgot about this. Oliver Queen, later on in the story, does grow his famous goatee. Yeah, he does. He grows his famous goatee. Neil Adams came back in the 70s. But, yeah, it's only for just that very story. The following story, he's still clean shaven. The second story, the artwork is done by Sergio Carlino, I think it's how you pronounce it. Here's a sample of the guy's artwork. Yeah, the guy's slightly better art. Now, ouch. Despite the fact that Greg Land nowadays, when you think of him as the guy who has characters who smile, or women who act in sexual poses, or make the female superheroes look like they're just porn stars wearing superhero costumes. This is actually very early in his work. Now, the cover for this and the covers in the book are done by Hugh Fleming. That's just the cover. This is a very gorgeous painted looking cover. Um, yeah, and it's also, I should also tell you, basically Denny O'Neil. This is one of several stories he wrote for the Legend Dark Knight series, the Air and the Bat story, and that was actually the last one he ever wrote for the series. Now, he basically had been writing the series, writing the Bat book since the early 70s. Now, this story arc was the last time that he ever wrote for the series. As far as I know, even after he left, he never wrote the series ever again because the series got canceled about 73 issues later. Yeah, a little over 6 years after he finished up this particular story arc, the Legend Dark Knight series ended. As for Legend DC Universe, I think it lasted for a few more years before the series got canceled. So you can kind of say that both stories are kind of, let's say, a story arc in a way. Or let's say it's like a mini cross between the two books. Now, I do praise DC Comics News. Now, here's the odd thing about this trade. It's an old trade. Yeah, I had to ask to get this thing. It wasn't like something come out like in the last couple of years. This thing came out. Well, this book was released back in 2003. This book is 13 years old, and it still kind of holds up. I mean, a little bit of bent pages. I mean, it's an okay condition for a 13-year-old trade, and because the story is still good and the artwork is still in great shape after 13 years, I'm giving this book a 9 out of 10. I highly recommend it. You can. The only place you can probably find this, I don't think you can find it in DCComics.com. I think you can only find it on Amazon, but its regular price is about $20. So that's pretty simple. Alright, next up is Supergirl, Volume 3, Sanctuary. Now, I had ordered a different Supergirl, but this is fine. I got no problem with this. In fact, I did issues here before. This collects issues of Supergirl Volume 6. Of Supergirl of the current continuity. This trade collects issues 13 through 20 of Supergirl Volume 6. It's called Sanctuary, and it's all about, basically the biggest focus of this entire trade is basically Supergirl's, well, her version of the Fortress of Solitude. And also, one of the best things that the writers did with this thing is that they made Silver Banshee a supporting character. And technically, she never technically becomes a Silver Banshee in the series. Nothing I can think of. No, and the thing ended like 20 issues later. So a little over I would say probably a little over 2 years after the storyline wrapped up, the series ended. But it is coming back. Thank you, DC Comics, bring the series back. Though I tend to wonder, though, why end in the first place? Yeah. Now, it's written by Mike Johnson, and the artwork is by Muhammad Assar. Yeah, I mean, she faces all sorts of villains, like the first couple issues, just a couple standalone issues, also featuring the Silver Banshee in her non-Silver Banshee form. A good chunk of this trade, about, I'd say issues 14 to 18, is just part of that very weird crossover known as Hell on Earth, and it's H''AEL. That's how he spells his name, and he looks very weird. This guy here, that's Hell. That's really his name. Yeah, he looks so bizarre. You also have the Flash and Wonder Woman show up in here, which is really good. My favorite story in this whole trade has got to be the final 2 issues of this trade. And there is a reason for that. Because Supergirl meets Power Girl for the first time. Now, this is the original costume that the one that appears in this current the one that appears, well, from Earth, the current Earth 2. This is her original costume when she changed name from Supergirl to Power Girl, because on her world she was known as Supergirl. When she came over to Primer, she changed her name to Power Girl because technically there already was a Supergirl anyways. It's kind of the same thing with her best friend Huntress, who was known in her world as Robin, but she changed her name to Huntress in order to differentiate herself from the others. Now, one thing I do praise this thing for doing is the fact that they actually, now this is also reflected in the pages of World's Finest, issue 12, which takes place after this two-parter, is that Power Girl ditches the costume that she had been wearing since at this point, for about a little over a year and a half, she ditches it for a much better costume. Yes, the boob window is back. Yep. And when I first saw this the first time a few years ago, I'm like, that is actually really good. It's a really good interpretation of the post-Flashpoint costume. Though, to be honest, the costumes look great. It does suffer from the biggest problem. The cape, it's classic Power Girl. The white suit, also classic Power Girl. The boots, the gloves, classic Power Girl. And of course the boob window. But it suffers from the same problem that a lot of characters in the current continuity suffer from. The stupid collar that they have to have. Now, I think a lot of people pointed this out, that superheroes who get redesigned costumes are given these stupid collars. I would say the only characters who don't is Flash, Batman, and I believe Batgirl and maybe Nightwing. They're the only ones who don't get the stupid collars. Everybody else does. Now I know I'm not sure what Jim Lee was come up with, but for some reason, now I don't criticize the artist who designed this costume. Now the costume itself is very heavily inspired by the costume she was wearing prior to the Flashpoint reboot back in 2011. Except, not really much change. I mean, the only additions they made to the costume when they brought back the actual real costume for Power Girl is they added the unnecessary lines the costume think that for some people think they need to have. I don't know why. And of course the stupid collar. But it looks like they actually open up and show a little more skin for the neck. Now, this is something that probably for a lot of people is really distracting for the costumes. Now, in the case of Superman's costume, is the problem the fact that it's got Kryptonian armor? Nope. Is the fact that the underwear is gone? Nope. The biggest problem with the costume is the collar. That is the really biggest problem. Now, if you look at Batman's original New 52 costume, now of course, Flash for some reason has a chin strap. So does Batgirl for some reason, though it's not really noticed in the issues, it's on the covers. Now, my rant about this is this. The collar, let's see, yeah, the collar, it's completely unnecessary. Also, she still is wearing this costume, but one small little problem. The boom window's closed. Yeah, there is a reason for that. In Earth 2 World's End, the real Earth 2 Superman showed up, except at the end of James Roberts' run, he revealed that one of Stephen Wolf's Hunger Dogs was in fact Superman. That was completely untrue. By the end of Tom Taylor's run, it turns out he was actually just a clone. In the World's End weekly series, by the way, it's Better to Future's End, basically, it was revealed that he actually did survive. But he had lost all his powers, and he had a little bit left of his original suit, so he actually, Lois, took some of the suit and put it inside of her android suit for some reason, and then later on she gave the S to Power Girl, and she still wears it in the Earth 2 Society series. Now, I might do a review of that when I get a chance in the trades, but back to Supergirl. It is very good the fact they had her meet Power Girl, because they did the same thing pre-Flashpoint. Why not do it here? And they met, and they clearly know that Power Girl is not a clone. She's just a alternate universe duplicate of the same character. So, suffice to say that the story is good, and the computer gets confused, and the book ends with the computer becomes some sort of robot and out to kill Kara. Now, one thing I should talk about is I've never reviewed the Supergirl show before. I want to talk about the costume. My problems with the costume. The S looks very weird. I am not sure why they decided to change the S to that. My biggest problem with the costume is, here we go. Okay, for some reason the cape is acting like a collar, where it has to cover her entire neck. Now this is something that's really bothering. Now, I'm not sure why people bring this up. Don't bring this up. I mean, people think that the biggest complaint of the Supergirl series is the fact Supergirl is very whiny. I've read all 40 issues of this very volume. I have no idea what they're talking about. She's not whiny. Okay, it's probably their perspective on how the series is written. Now, my problem with the suit, there's a couple of small problems. The overall top of it, I don't have a big problem with it. The biggest problem I have with it is this right here. They took out the skirt and replaced it with a thong. No idea why. And they for some reason they gave her boots, but for some reason they have her knees exposed. I don't know why. Now, what I'm hoping though, when they bring the series back, now as far as she is going to costume change, thank you. Hopefully they'll have her stop having her cover up her neck. Okay? But otherwise though, this is okay. There's a small little gripe I have with the book, is the fact there is repeated attempts to show off her rear end. Despite the fact this girl is probably supposed to be like 18 years old, and I actually took a head count of how many times she actually shows off her rear end, because the way they have it drawn is that her cape sort of flows up a little bit and shows off her rear end. She basically shows off her back of her costume, basically her butt, 6 times in the book. Not kidding. Also, when she's shown from the side, you can see a lot of skin for her. Now, when it comes to me and Supergirl, when it comes to how I want the costume, I'm hoping they actually kind of redesign the S to be a little more like Superman, because technically this is supposed to be Supergirl. I'm hoping she gets her skirt back, because that's one thing key about Supergirl that she's always had, is a skirt. Heck, the previous Supergirl costumes have all had skirts or usually shorts, not a thong. The thong is completely necessary. But the story itself is okay. I give it a 8.5 out of 10. It's pretty decent. If you're a Supergirl fan, you might want to pick that up, but be forewarned, if anybody tells you that she's very whiny, ignore them. And just have your own, just go into this volume with open mind, but I would start with volume 1. Now I think overall they collected this whole series in about, I think it was about 6 volumes, 7 volumes altogether. Okay, but that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, which should be episode 241 and Doubleshot number 174. Till then, see you there. Bye.